So, what kind of army turns its FPV drones on its own surrendering troops? That's what the Russians are doing. And there's multiple lines of evidence here, and I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to get to that story in just a little bit. We're going to start where we normally start with things like there's another Book M3 SAM system that's just been taken off the battlefield. There's minus another Russian howitzer. And the commentary here was really interesting. Each such destruction equals hundreds of shells that will not be fired at Ukrainian defenders. Ukrainian-made interceptor drones on the hunt. They destroyed two Zalas, two Supercams, and an Orlan UAV. I usually show these at the end, but I'm reordering some things for a reason. Now, yesterday we talked about the Russian Ka-52 that crashed. It crashed while chasing a Ukrainian UAV. I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. Why would a Russian helicopter crash because of while it's trying to knock down a Ukrainian UAV? And then, my first thought was, oh, well, maybe it just didn't have the parts, user error, something along those lines. It's different. Another Ka-52 helicopter, this is yesterday, same one, shot down in eastern Ukraine, the victim of good old friendly fire. Russian Telegram reported that the Ka-52 destroyed yesterday was hit by its own side. The entire crew was killed. Apparently, a plane thought that the helicopter was a drone, and there goes. So, but however this worked out, another Russian Ka-52 is out of business. Okay, half the population of the occupied Sakhalin Island lost electricity. The capital is also without water. Officially, lightning strike on a power line between two substations is blamed, but witnesses saw a big flash at the thermal power plant. So, I mean, lightning causes big flashes too, but it was a different kind of big flash. Power station on the island is reportedly exploded, which is different than the power line, leaving the island in total blackout. Sakhalin sits about 6,400 kilometers east of Moscow, roughly 4,000 miles east of Moscow, roughly a 9-hour flight away. If you want to know where that is, it's just above Japan. It's all the way over here. So I don't know if this was Ukrainian or what it was, but it's still another headache for the Russians. Zelensky said Ukraine plans to expand its long-range strike capabilities, hinting at future attacks deeper inside Russia and warning that Moscow's oil industry will pay even more. I don't know if this one was a deep strike or if it was some kind of sabotage or if it just happened to be an accident. This could legitimately have been just an accident of some sort. Okay, but Ukraine's Air Force struck the Bryansk chemical plant with British-made Storm Shadow missiles. This was just recently, not last night, in the first officially acknowledged deep strike inside Russia using the missiles. The plant produced explosives and components for Kh-59 missiles used against Ukrainian cities. Russian officials claimed all the missiles were shot down. Of course, they always claim that all the missiles were shot down. I mean, you never get the truth. Storm Shadow stocks were nearly depleted by early 2025. British and French plants resumed production this summer after a 15-year pause, ramping from 10 to 20 missiles monthly to 50 by 2026. Okay, I mean, I don't understand exactly why it took them until this past summer when obviously the need was going to be there, but okay, I mean, they're on the way, and that's the direction that they need to be going. Okay, what did the Russians do last night? And I'm going to get to the commanders targeting their own Russian soldiers who are trying to surrender in just a little bit, but let me get there. Okay, overnight on October 28th, Russia launched 38 attack drones. That's really low. That really low number tells me, as it should tell you if you've been paying attention, that they're probably saving up for a much larger blitz. Ukrainian air defenses shot down or jammed 26 of them. Strikes were recorded at 4 locations, with drone debris falling in 1 more. But they don't just need that in order to, like these Shahed drones. I mean, these are FPV drones, another Russian attack on Ukrainian police. You see a FPV drone going after the police car here. This kind of thing still happens. And then Russian T does not cease for a single day. In just one day, 396 strikes were documented in Zaporizhia Oblast. Now, that could be artillery or a KAB or whatever else. That could be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be Shaheds at night. At night, Shaheeds generally target civilians, but during the day, Russians are just as happy to target civilians in other ways. All of them aim not at military but at civilians. As a result, Russian assaults, one person was killed, three others were wounded. 396 strikes, no military targets here. Okay, let's look at the battlefield. There's 1,060 Russians off the battlefield, a little higher than the average. 6 tanks, 28 armored vehicles. Like, these numbers are starting. Like, we saw things happening, and then we're like, well, where are the tallies on here? 8 artillery systems, and then when you look at vehicles and fuel tanks, 131 vehicles and fuel tanks. Okay, so I want to focus on this armor thing here for a little bit. So we're going to look at what's happening on the battlefield in Pokrovsk. Let's first look at this. 5th highest number of engagements, casualties well above average as well. Overnight attacks, unusually few. All drones, interception rate below average. We just talked about that. But Pokrovsk, 57 assaults. Okay, that's higher. Now let's look at what was going on here. Ukrainian forces recently advanced near Kupiansk, Pokrovsk, Hayapol. I'm not sure I got that right. In fact, I'm pretty sure I got that one wrong. Dobropilia, tactical area. Russian forces recently advanced in Kharkiv and Pokrovsk, and the one I couldn't pronounce exactly right. Okay, Russian forces launched today a large armored assault around 29 vehicles. This is the armor that we were just talking about, that I was just circling. Their aim was a flanking attack against Ukrainian lines in Shakove and Volodymyrivka. Some 18 kilometers, 11 miles northeast of Pokrovsk. The assault failed miserably. Ukrainian FPV drones were hitting armor one by one. 12 Russian APCs, 2 MBPs were destroyed. Preston Stewart also put this out inside Pokrovsk. The small infiltration teams are causing havoc, but elsewhere, Russia keeps throwing large armored assaults into the meat grinder. I just don't understand this. I mean, it makes more sense than sending motorcycles forward, but I just don't understand with FPV drones why anyone would think this is a good idea. This one stopped near Dobropilia by the 1st Azov Corps. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Andrew Perpetua posted this. We're seeing over 1,000 damaged and destroyed pickup trucks per month for Ukraine, just in the footage we get. So when you see fundraisers for vehicles, that's why. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you look at the number, and both sides are getting tagged because the FPV drones, they're big. Okay, let's talk about the big story, Russians killing Russians. So I showed you this about a week ago. This was October 22nd, 2025. Today is the 28th. Russian mass surrender at the encirclement of Kuchev Yar. Okay, it was meant to, the bunny ears. It was meant to be an impressive thing to impress the world, and they surrendered. Now, mercifully, there weren't Russian FPV drones around this area, or not many, at least, because what happens when there are, well, this. Russian forces lost 22 of 26 assault vehicles in a single day. When survivors attempted to surrender, their own command turned FPV drones on them. Footage shows one Russian paratrooper walking out with his arms raised, guided by two Ukrainian soldiers who had accepted his surrender. Minutes later, 2 Russian FPV drones attacked, but focused exclusively on the Russian soldier, ignoring the Ukrainians. Another clip shows a VDV soldier holding up his arms in surrender and then turning to plead with an approaching Russian kamikaze drone. The systematic targeting isn't isolated. When Russian reconnaissance identifies their own troops moving to surrender, FPV operators receive orders to strike. The command calculates that allowing soldiers surrenders will accelerate discipline collapse across units already strained by massive losses. So that's what they turn against their own. They will kill their own before they allow them to surrender. Here I showed this the other day as well. Russian soldiers say that every man in his unit has been ordered to shoot his comrades. I'm not making this up. To shoot his comrades if they try to flee, or face being shot themselves as punishment if they allow them to flee. He describes an atmosphere of paranoia amidst huge losses, which he puts at 95% of men going into the assaults. Yeah, how about that? So nothing says morale like, make sure you shoot the guy next to you if they try to surrender. Okay, with Russian military desertion spiraling out of control, well, you would wonder why desertions are spiraling out of control. Emergency measures are being implemented, increasing penalties and shortening the missing window from 10 days to 2 days before they're considered AWOL. Uh, okay. Um, yeah, but why, like, you'd want to get out of there too if that was you, right? A little follow up here. I have a couple of follow up stories, and these are all important for context. Russia has declared a state of emergency at the Belgorod Reservoir after strikes damaged the bottom outlet and both sluice gates, causing water levels to drop by a meter. Authorities are now trying to block the outflow to prevent further flooding downstream and reservoir depletion. Okay, so those bad Ukrainians are they're trying to destroy the environment by destroying this dam, right? Well, it was a little bit more complicated than that. They were actually trying to make a headache for the Russian troops there that would be unable to cross because of the flooding. Aftermath of the dam breach in Russia's Belgorod region, Russian equipment submerged underwater. Well, that'll keep them from moving. Russian troops are complaining about severe logistical problems near Selblinko and Volchansk direction. Movement has become impossible. Vehicles are stuck in the mud, and some fortifications have been flooded. According to local sources, the water level continues to rise, and the consequences of this self-cleansing of the front are only beginning to unfold. So it looks like this was a very smart targeted hit for the Ukrainians to befuddle the Russian troops that could otherwise come and cause damage. Okay, we were talking yesterday about the Berezhnik missile flying. They call it on RT here, calling it a flying Chernobyl. It's a weapon out of science fiction that could destabilize global security, according to the New York Times. I mean, it can fly further, but it doesn't really do anything more than other missiles. Other missiles of its kind of class could do this same kind of thing. Just this one flies further, but at a certain point, there's diminishing returns. Okay, now with that being said, we were also talking about the Octopus interceptor drone, which will be co-produced in Britain. I talked about this just a couple days ago. This was October 24th. Again, it's the 28th today. In the first stages, it's expected about 2,000 drones will be produced per month, which will be transferred to the armed forces of Ukraine. So it's produced in Britain. I said at the time when I was showing this, well, why is it produced in Britain? Well, probably because British jobs, and then the prime minister gets to take a victory lap for that, and but Ukraine's still getting the drone. Great, absolutely wonderful, awesome. And then I saw this. Historic. Now, this is tied to the other one. Historic moment. Erdogan and Starmer sign an agreement for Turkey to purchase British fighter jets. The UK will supply Turkey with dozens of Eurofighter Typhoons under a $8 billion or £8 billion deal. Okay. So Starmer signing this deal, and why is he signing this deal? I've just agreed with Turkey to secure 20,000 British jobs across the UK. Okay, this is exactly what a politician wants. I don't fault him for wanting to do that, to have, bring home the bacon, so to speak. Here's today's Typhoon. This is John Healey, the defense, or I think he's the Secretary of State for Defense. Today's Typhoon export deal with Turkey strengthens NATO, drives economic growth for the UK, 20,000 skilled jobs secured. Yeah, great. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Rather than just build it in Ukraine, which, it has its upside by providing Ukrainian jobs, but it has a downside of potentially being a target. Meanwhile, the Russian propagandists are saying this: if Orishniks hit Britain, those factories that produce Ukrainian drones, there's a Ukrainian plant. If we declare outright that we don't care on which territory that is located, since it's declared a Ukrainian military production, it is for us a legitimate target. Okay. No words. Nobody believes words anymore. We have to strike and strike hard. Of course, if you do that, you're into World War III, because now you struck on sovereign British soil or whatever other country's soil. But again, they're just, this is what propagandists do. Okay, this is kind of an interesting story. The Paris Louvre robbery, the museum robbery, jewels were stolen the other day. I didn't talk about it because it didn't seem related. The Paris robbery would never have happened in Russia. We have the best surveillance system. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you do have good surveillance systems to stay on top of your people. And probably only rivaled by the technology in China, and maybe North Korea is the world leader on that sort of thing. But she's bragging about that. It's kind of, dark that she's bragging about that when a Russian citizen and former French Legion soldier uh, was the one suspected of being the ringleader of the Louvre, I think, right? Museum jewel heist in Paris. Okay, well, this is what apparently Russians do. So, Darth Putin, the biggest difference between us and ISIS is that ISIS admits their crimes. All right, a little shout out to Michael Apple. Michael Apple is an undergraduate YouTube member. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your support. Thank you to the rest of you. Put your comments below. I try to read as many as I can. And thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you will be as well. Thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.